Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Brendan Rodgers says he will continue to strive to make the players and the team better in European football despite their financial constraints. Celtic, of course, in action against Partick Thistle tomorrow night. Unbelievably, there's still a war of words going on between Motherwell and Celtic. James MacPherson has hit back at Chris Davis, the Celtic assistant, and Achille in danger of being frozen out in the Premiership here in Scotland. That's just a few of the topics we'll be talking about. Gordon Smith is here with me, and our Bootroom guest, I'm delighted to say, is the broadcasting legend Archie MacPherson. Archie, first and foremost, let's touch on Celtic. Now they're back in the domestic front against Thistle on Friday, but what did you make of their Champions League group stages?
Well, 3 points bottom of the group doesn't sound all that much. But on the other hand, if you look at what happened to them in the Camp Nou against Barcelona, a very good Barcelona performance that night. Remember, it was their first foot. They wanted to show the supporters they were up for it, and Celtic got it in the neck. So they've improved remarkably since then. They got their 3 draws, 2 draws against Manchester City. The game that beat them, of course, was the game at Parkhead against Borussia Mönchengladbach. You know, that is something they would not have lost under normal circumstances, I don't think. And they talk about it being a citadel, but some of the results at Parkhead recently haven't been as good as they might have expected. But nevertheless, the consolation is a huge amount of money they've made. Now, Celtic don't need to spend a lot of money to win the league. In fact, I don't think they need to spend a halfpenny to win the league, maybe for the next couple of seasons or so. But they do. They're a club with ambition. They want to play outside Scotland. They would like to play permanently in England. That's not going to happen, I don't think. But in terms of keeping their reputation in Europe, they'll have to spend big. And they've done well in that market. They've got a lot of money. I can't calculate. Newspapers are making wild estimates of what they have actually earned, but it's a good few million, let's put it that way. So they're streets ahead of any other Scottish club in that regard. But still, I would say this though. I agree with Roy Keane about what he said about Manchester City's attitude in that last game. I mean, it was disrespectful to play, let's face it, not so much a second 11, but a second kind of string with some of the stars on the bench and not even there. Because in a sense, they were saying to Celtic, well, this is just a practice match for us. Yes, they had qualified. But I think, to be fair to their own City supporters, who saw an abysmal performance by these players, and if he was trying out players to think, well, they can step in to the shoes of anybody who's injured, it doesn't augur very well for them. It's a game Celtic should have won because they were the better team of the night. But it's the money that they've earned is going to be very useful to them.
Yeah, and of course, Brendan Rodgers keen to emphasise that he is striving to make the players better.
A lot more to come, and I think they need help as well. I think they need a few players in that can also help them. But yeah, I look at a lot of the players, and it's a big credit to them because you have to want to improve, you have to want to learn, you have to want to commit yourself to leading your life right every single day, you know, in order to get yourself in a position to play to the level that the players have been playing at, you know, to play to that intensity. You've got to be fit, you know. And being fit means that you're training well every day, you're looking after your diet, you know, you're looking after every aspect of your life. You're not wasting your time doing stupid things. You're preparing yourself properly. And then you play within a game model that allows you then to flourish. And that's been the beauty of it. You know, watching the players impose this style of how we want to play in some of the most difficult venues that you can play in, you know, Manchester City, Borussia Mönchengladbach away, really imposing our game and our football idea on these teams, and having the composure and to play a possession-based game, but with speed, with quality, and the creation of chances. So I think more time, of course, will allow us to improve over the coming years, and just continually adding to the quality of the squad will also improve it.
Yep, Gordon Smith, Brendan Rodgers clearly wants to add to that squad with Europe in mind. But as Archie mentioned there, they don't necessarily need to spend any money in January, although I'm almost certain, you know, you'll look for 1 or 2 additions, maybe ship a few out. They're up against Partick Thistle. They're 8 points clear of Rangers. They've got 3 games in hand.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're cruising at the moment. But, I mean, even the fact is he's getting more out of the players he currently has too. I mean, you take Armstrong, who is now a prominent player for Celtic, playing really well, wasn't doing anything under the previous regime. Mackay Stevens came back in the team on Tuesday night, looked good as well. So he's getting improvement out of those players, and they're all competing for a position. So he might still want to strengthen, get a couple of players in, because Celtic have got the money. As Archie said, they've made well over £20 million from the Champions League. I mean, it's upwards of 25, I think, even in terms of getting points and all that. I mean, the other aspect of it, Peter, is there has been improvement as it's gone on. Even, I would say, in the qualifying rounds, Celtic weren't that impressive in the qualifiers. And then they started off their campaign with a 7-0 drubbing in Barcelona. But since then, definitely the performances have got better.
Partick Thistle against Celtic is the Friday night match, and down at the bottom end of the table. Well, I think Alan Archibald mentioned to me a few weeks ago, could throw a blanket, Archie, over 7 clubs who are all battling to avoid relegation.
They played well against Rangers recently. I thought Rangers were slightly fortunate to get away with a win there. Well organised, pacey, players that stick in for them. There's no question at all about that. I think they'll find it difficult, though, to pick up points against the major teams like Celtic. Rangers, as I say, I think were slightly lucky to get away with that. So their test is to take points off teams like Hamilton, St Johnstone, Kilmarnock, teams like that. That's the important test for them. Not against Celtic. Yeah,
and of course every manager looks for an edge, Gordon, to try and win a game, and Killie are taking it to new levels, the level being minus 138 degrees.
Yes.
They've managed to get a cryo chamber, and just in case you're wondering what that's all about, Raman Bardwaj explains.
Take your masks, lads.
It may have been a mild winter so far, but some Kilmarnock players couldn't escape the cold as they tested the club's new freezing ice chamber.
Keep moving, don't rub your skin.
The cryotherapy chamber, which drops to temperatures to as low as minus 130 degrees Celsius, is designed to improve player recovery and arrives at Kilmarnock at the request of manager Lee Clark.
I knew a couple of the guys from Fulham who have it installed from my time there, the medical team, and also from Sunderland who have it installed, and just got chatting and talking about the benefits of it and the overall picture, not just for recovery of players but rehabilitation of injured players.
Players walk in the freezing chamber for around 3 minutes before the door reopens.
Don't touch your skin.
Don't touch your skin. Don't touch your skin. I'm not touching. Come on.
Kilmarnock have the £100,000 chamber on trial with a view to buying the unit.
I want to try and build the club on the field and off the field. I want things to improve in the infrastructure and in the sports medicine and the sports science, on obviously the quality of player we have. All these type of things I want to try and improve over my period of time here.
I have to say, I'm resisting the pun because I know you two can see it coming, but
yeah.
But nevertheless, managers go to great lengths. I seem to remember, a good, 10, 15 years ago, in fact, maybe 20 years ago, Paul McStay going into an oxygen chamber because they thought it accelerated the recovery process.
Absolutely, there was a lot of things going to go. I mean, obviously, you were going to say, call this a cryo chamber because there's people are crying when they come out. Is that what you were going to say?
No, I was going to say, I hope Killie don't freeze on the day against Motherwell, but I apologise right now. I got lulled into it.
I think seemingly when they played up in Aberdeen on Tuesday night, it was very much like that. It was a cryo chamber up there too. It was freezing and it was pouring the whole game. I think you can't take away from anybody who's wanting to improve on things. The only thing from Kilmarnock's point of view, it's like a spend. I mean, people might question that and say, well, can't they recover without that? Who else needs that? With that £100,000, if they actually end up buying one, they can maybe bring in a couple of players. They might actually do the trick and help Kilmarnock recover after games,
Sure, you've got to remember, Peter, that way back, you're talking about Steen and so on, people were laughing at coaching courses. They didn't think they were very necessary, or even wearing a tracksuit to training. I mean, all these things have evolved, so I congratulate anybody who's trying something new. There's no question at all about that. However, I think Lee is going to remember the 3 factors involved in successful management is results, results and results.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can remember some people actually looking and questioning AC Milan when they were measuring body fat and monitoring their heart while the Milan players were training. They didn't question them when they won the Champions League, but nevertheless, I suppose you have to prove the case. And with that in mind, we'll probably talk about Ian Cathro and his coaching techniques to Archie MacPherson after the break. We'll also talk about Joey Barton, this ongoing rammy between Motherwell and Celtic, which much ado about nothing really. We'll keep it going after the break. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show. Gordon Smith, an able deputy, may I add, for Alan Ruff, and it doesn't get any better as a bookroom guest than Archie MacPherson here with us in the studio to talk about the weekend's football and some of the news emerging today. Joey Barton's been speaking. Archie saying if he had his chance again he would sign for Rangers. Didn't quite work out. No shortage of clubs that want him down south, where he says his credibility is still intact.
Well, I think he has to say these things. I mean, it was a bad episode for him and for Rangers. They made a mistake. In a sense, you could say, well, he was a good player. He had a great season down south before he came to Rangers, so it's not at all surprising that if he had been available, and he certainly was, that they would go for him. But it was a personality and the arguments that he had with his own players in the club. And you have to say, it shows an element of a guy who has something of a personality. There's no question at all about that. He has opinions. But why doesn't he grasp the situation of knowing that these battles within a club will always get out, will always be bad publicity, both for him and the club itself? So in that sense, he's trying to make amends. So there's very little he could say against Rangers, given the fact they gave him an opportunity. The support were happy to have him initially anyway. So there's nothing very much he could criticise about that. But it was a bad move, and he's trying to reconstitute himself. And I don't know whether he has that credibility or not in the South.
Yeah. I don't think he'll have any shortage of suitors looking to snap him up in the January transfer window. But that episode is now closed. As far as Motherwell are concerned, Mark McGee has picked up a 3-match ban. One of them is suspended. This is for foul and abusive language after the 2-0 defeat to Dundee. And of course the argument's still raging on over last week when Celtic were asked to shoot into temporary goals that are put up at Fir Park on a regular basis for other clubs. James McFadden said Celtic just didn't obey the rules that everybody else adheres to. This thing's I mean, I'm guilty of it now because it's reared its ugly head again because James McFadden's speaking about it, but okay, made a mistake, it's tit for tat here. Chris Davis has a pop, Mark McGee's had one, James McFadden chips in with it. Yeah. Who cares?
Well, the aftermath turned out very much like the match itself. That it was going one way then the other, and both having a go, tit for tat. Yeah, it was a great game. There's no doubt about that. And this is
entertaining.
It was very entertaining. This is just adding fuel to the fire because I mean, James McFadden would as well just letting it go and just saying, well, I'm not going to talk about it now. But he's now brought it up again. Yeah. I mean, they might be right. There might be nothing wrong with Motherwell's opinion on it by saying if you put up temporary goals for somebody to say, I know you want some shooting practice for the game. Here's the area of the pitch to do it on. And then Celtic decide not to do it. I can understand then why they'd be a bit annoyed about that because you're doing it in a bit of the pitch which obviously can take the flow of players, the damage that might come to the pitch. So that's where it's all started from. I don't know whether the result itself has added to that. You know?
Peter, all these things stem from background and deeper rooted problems. Motherwell desperately need points. Yeah. They almost got a point off Celtic, which would have been an achievement. Could maybe even have won the game. And so that frustration, I think, aggravates any particular situation. I mean, it's not likely to end up in the Supreme Court in London, this affair. And in that sense, I think somebody should bring it to a halt.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring it to a halt now. And of course, the other story we'll not bother talking about, manager in foul and abusive language storm. Where have we heard that before? You could go back over Archie's 50-odd years of broadcasting and it could be in every part of his book. So Motherwell in action against Kilmarnock. and we'll see who comes out on top there. Let's switch our attention to something that I'm looking at. Robbie Neilson, he's manager of the month for November. No, sometimes I look at these things and I think, really?
Yeah, I know, it's amazing the fact he's away and they're still getting it, but I think maybe just honouring him in terms of his last month in charge sort of thing. You know, he's gone down to MK Dons now, he's out of it. It's a big story in that respect because he did leave on a high with a win over Rangers.
So sentiment rather than any kind of factual award.
Well, I don't think it's just sentiment. I think he did have a good month. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 draws and 2 wins.
Yeah, well, I know that. I know what you mean.
Okay, damning with faint praise.
Sentiment.
Exactly, Archie.
Yeah, I think this is a sentimental thing.
Yes.
It's a panel, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think they thought, give him a good hug on his way south, because I think he's made a big mistake. Unless he was forced out, unless he was desperately unhappy at Tynecastle.
No, I don't get that sense.
I think he's made a big mistake. I mean, he's maybe getting more money, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know in the background about these things. But MK Dons, where are MK Dons are we going to go? I mean, Hearts qualifying for Europe would be a great achievement for that club, getting more money. They're going into a renovated stadium, and you would have thought he would like to be synonymous with that, with a new era and so on. So it surprised me.
Yeah, I think now, Gordon, there's a difference to it. Quite simply, I think, and no disrespect, Robbie Neilson wants to test himself.
Yes.
Maybe he's not, as Archie mentioned there, we're talking about levels. I think the greater incentive is the financial one. This could be a stepping stone, or a regular stepping stone, to a bigger wage than could ever be offered to him on the Scottish scene.
Yeah, and my understanding is he's got a much bigger budget as well, and because they're in the situation where they are, they're near the bottom of League One. I think what he does is he can build his reputation by taking them up. That's why he's gone there. He's left in order to build his reputation in England, because in general, most of the time you can do really well in Scotland. Neil Lennon was a good example. Mm-hmm. Did well in Scotland, won leagues, beat Barcelona, and where does he go? Bolton. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to get a good job. So Robbie Neilson sees this. I think he liked the people who run Wimbledon in terms of how they've given their last manager a really good run at it. He had 6 years in charge, and I think he sees it as a club that have got a lot of potential. Yeah.
What about the appointment, Archie, of Ian Cathro? I mean, there's a lot of people, being overly critical of anybody who criticises it. I mean, I think it's a brave appointment. I think it's a bold one. I think they should be commended for it. But ultimately, as Gordon and I have been discussing ad nauseum this week, it's all about results. It's all about winning players over, you know.
It is, and you get the impression that a club will look at something which is entirely new, a new phenomenon. Celtic did that before they got the present manager.
Yeah, Ronnie Dyler was that for them, wasn't
he? And he was new, he was fresh, he was about coaching, he was coming from a different environment to inject something into Celtic, and it didn't work out the way it did, the way eventually it did. So, in a sense, you have to be very careful about what you're pinning your colours to. So, I don't know. I know nothing about him.
Yeah.
To be honest, Peter, he was just a name to me, so I don't know what his reputation. Apparently, he has a high reputation as a coach. That's for sure. But it's not football management, for heaven's sake. You know this better than anybody else. Isn't simply about the technical side of the game or tactics or whatever. It's about man management. It really is about man management.
Absolutely, I agree with you totally.
Almost first
so, and the main thing,
foremost.
You can be a good coach, and if you're a bad man manager, you'll fail. That's the truth. If you're a good man manager and a bad coach, you can still succeed.
Yeah, but in a strange sort of way, we can't even pronounce that judgment on him, because, as Archie mentioned, I think I fall into this category. I don't know about yourself. I couldn't even write down the back of a stamp what I know about Ian Cathro.
Yeah.
What I think should be fair for any journalist and any fan out there is give him the chance, let him do it. I think there's somewhere in the background a baying mob almost willing him to fail, as if to say, I told you so.
You're absolutely right, Peter. And the aspect is that Craig Levein must have done some sort of research and have knowledge of him in order for him, because his reputation is at stake as well, Craig Levein, now that he's brought him in. And Hearts are a club that seem to be going somewhere, and they wouldn't bring somebody in.
Oh yeah, sure. I agree with that.
Charge of the club unless they had every confidence that he was going to be a success.
They must have done some background stuff on him, and they would know personally about him as well.
Yeah.
People would talk about him. So they've done an amount of an assessment, but it's a gamble.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every appointment is.
Yeah. I agree with you there, Gordon. It's a great way to finish the programme, although I will just finish on one little stat. I know you love your stats. Barcelona have just broken the record again in the Champions League for the most number of passes, 993 in a game. I mean, honestly, it's fantastic.
Who's counting these?
Yeah.
I know.
That's what gets me.
Yes, absolutely. Let's.
Where's it going?
I am not in the least bit surprised if you had said to me, which team is it who's had the most passes in the Champions League? I'd have been tipping Barcelona right away.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as there's an end result, I can hear 1,000,001 coaches saying, but with Barcelona, there usually is. I hope tomorrow, I'm not waking up to a back page headline from the boffin who counts these passes. Archie MacPherson degrades my job. I'm almost certain there is someone who actually just sits there and counts how many passes have been completed. There's a job for everyone in football. Thanks to Archie for joining us as our boot-room guest. Always a pleasure to listen to the great man. Gordon Smith will be back with me tomorrow with another great man, Hugh McDonald. Join us if you can at 6:30. From everyone here, good night.